now going to go to Robert Valencia, who's a political analyst and a member of Conectas, a network of Latin American journalists. He also joins us now from New York. Before I ask anything else, I just want to get your reaction to these pictures and this staging that we're seeing, these extraordinary pictures. What's the first thought that comes into your head?
Well, first of all, thank you so much again for inviting me into your show. This is completely a show of force, not only to the Venezuelan top brass, the military in Caracas, but to other what we consider or what Donald Trump considers hostile governments. And I speak specifically in the case of Colombia. He sent a thin veil threat to Gustavo Petro, for instance, saying that he is a drug dealer, that he's a drug producer, and that he might be facing the same fate as Nicolás Maduro. Now, these are threats, but this is coming from the United States. This is coming from the president of the United States, a longtime ally of Colombia. So certainly, President Trump and his team likes to use images like this to show that this is something that the United States is able to do, and that there's extrajudicial activities that they're able to do to bring a president of a sovereign nation to U.S. Justice. So certainly the images that we've seen of Nicolás Maduro wearing this hoodie or this jumpsuit, being blindfolded, taken by DEA agents, is an absolute show of force to the rest of the world.
But it's a show of force that's going to make Donald Trump very popular in certain sectors of the political establishment. It's going to make Donald Trump, he's going to do what it says on the tin, like what we've been talking about. This is this idea of a show of force makes him look tough. It's an extraordinary set of pictures. It's an extraordinary set of pictures that we're watching. Now, what for you happens next here? What do you think the Venezuelans should do to try and combat this? Is there a counter-narrative here that they can push?
I'm not sure if there's necessarily a counter-narrative here. While the Venezuelan exile celebrates what had happened on Saturday, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I would say there's a lot of fear within Venezuelans. In fact, you've seen images of Venezuelans making lines to get a lot of supplies, food supplies, oil supplies, because there's nothing that they can envision that there's going to be a smooth transition. It's something that even Marco Rubio did not even mention during his Saturday morning interventions on American television. He said he didn't even promise whether there's going to be elections in the future. Delcy Rodriguez is an indefinite acting president based on the decision by the Supreme Court of Venezuela. But there's more uncertainty and lack of clarity as to what's going to happen in Venezuela. And I like to add one thing, since you mentioned the popularity that Donald Trump may be getting after this incredible event that we're witnessing in the beginning of this year. The Senate will be able, or it is very likely, to introduce a resolution that will limit Donald Trump's war powers. This is a bipartisan resolution that will be introduced by Tim Kaine, who's a Democrat from Virginia, and Rand Paul, a libertarian conservative from Kentucky. Now, it remains to be seen whether this resolution will prosper, because it requires a simple minority in the Senate, maybe 51 votes, that this group confides will get, but it will have to be approved by the House and then signed into law by the president, which is very likely to veto. So this is going to be a long fight in the way the President Trump conducts these types of operations, without the behest of the Congress, which ultimately decides whether the United States can go to war or can have military interventions or not.
That is a fascinating point, and we have been talking about it earlier with our correspondent, Alan Fisher. There's a short-term political problem here for Donald Trump, as you've just kind of got into there, because the legality or illegality of this is up for discussion, not just in the US, but in international law as well. Robert.
Exactly. And as a matter of fact, the United Nations, there was a report by Reuters that points out to the fact that the United Nations might be looking into the legality of this action. Now, there are other legal experts in the United States that are not necessarily optimistic that the United States will face any kind of retaliation or any kind of rebuke. They're getting the rebuke, but there's nothing that will force the United States to return Maduro, or that they will face any legal challenges. And that's the reality of it. We're in murky waters with respect of how this is conducted, because as you probably heard and probably your guests have mentioned before, there is certainly a violation of international law. There has not been a military aggression from Venezuela to the United States. This is just a penal or a criminal indictment that is being bestowed upon Nicolás Maduro. But there's no ground, there are no grounds for the United States to actually conduct what they did on Saturday. And I think this is where the Senate in the United States is trying to do. They're trying to limit Donald Trump's powers when it comes to military aggressions. This is not the only one in Venezuela. It occurred on Christmas Day in Nigeria. It occurred in Iran when they bombed nuclear bases. But this is now going to be an interesting time because, as you know, we're entering election year. There's going to be the midterm elections in November, and we'll see how this is going to play out in the next couple of months.
So, Robert, another question then to you when it comes to the showmanship, the politics of all of this. We've got correspondents waiting for us in the White House, in Panama, and in Colombia. The regional reaction to this is going to be interesting as well because it's real now. He's in court. So he was always a divisive figure. So he didn't have the kind of support from the Latin American governments that perhaps would get him out of this. But do you think, watching these pictures, do you think that support has now shifted because other countries realize, this could probably happen to us?
Oh, certainly the backlash comes from from the European Union, for instance. Even figures that you will imagine are akin to Donald Trump's politics, and I'm speaking, for example, about Giorgia Meloni, who is the Prime Minister of Italy. She agrees that Maduro it's an unsavory and a despot, but that
Robert,
they do not agree with the way that he was.
Robert, I'm just going to stop you there because we do have to go to our chief